What up, y'all? It's the Robot Watcher. Grab your binoculars, and I'm back with another video. Let's cover a recent champion. You know the vibes. Natty times. Let's go get straight into it. Today we are covering a national champion, a championship defender, a part of a championship defense, I should say. Shout out to Derek, even though he got like 6 different teams for every league, so I really shouldn't be shouting him out. Shout out to the Michigan fans. Congrats on the national championship. Shout out Jim Harbaugh on the way to the NFL, stuff like that. Shout out to all the Michigan players, everybody like that. But today we are talking about safety, free safety, strong safety. He plays a lot of hats, or wears a lot of hats, I should say. Rod Moore. Let's go ahead and get into his stats. I'm talking too much. So 6 foot, 198 junior. I want to say he's 20 years old. I want to say he's a true junior. 2021 stats: 33 total tackles, 22 solos, 11 assists, and 1 pass deflection. No interceptions. 2022, 71 total, 48 solos, 23 assists, 3 pass deflections, 4 INTs. 2023 had 38 total, 21 solos, 17 assists, 3 pass deflections, and 2 interceptions. I will say he played a little banged up from what I read and what I heard. I didn't keep up with Michigan throughout the whole season, but he did play through a couple injuries and played a little banged up, so that's kind of why he had that drop in production. And I didn't realize he wasn't a senior, so now I'm a little worried that he's going to go back to school. But I'm hurrying up. Regardless, we done did this video already. It's coming out. So if he declares and say, hey, I'm going back to school when this video drops, don't blame me. But let's get into the film. Let's get into the strengths of the boy, Rod Moore. What kind of surprised me, since he was kind of like a free safety and kind of billed as a single high when I first started doing my research on him, and we'll get into it later. But what kind of surprised me is how much of a thumper he is when he's tackling. I mean, whether he's coming down and closing in on a route, thumping, knocking the ball loose, or whenever he's playing close to the line of scrimmage and he's kind of helping supporting the run, or whether he's running the alley, he kind of wants to lay a little bit of on you when he can. I mean, he's not the crazy hard-hitting safety prime Jamal Adams, things like that, but he'll come down and lay a little thump on you. He's not soft. I'll give you that. He's not soft at all. Next thing I noticed, especially when I was watching this film, probably don't have any clips of this, but he's a great communicator. Before every play, you can see him motioning his hands around. His mouthpiece is hanging the whole time because he's talking to the rest of the defense, telling guys where to be, things like that. So that's a really, really smart player usually, and has a good grasp of the defense that he has or he's playing in. Also, I want to say he's super aggressive and quick triggered when it comes to run concepts and on route concepts. Whenever he sees a run, whether if he's playing deep safety and he needs to run the alley, get down there and put a tackle in on the running back, he's not like Cooper DeJean in a couple other videos I did, or even the last video I did. He's not like Nate Wiggins. He's going to come down and make that tackle. He's running downhill fast as he can. Maybe not fast as he can. Well, yeah, fast as he can usually, and he's going to make that tackle. Or even on route concepts. When he IDs route concepts, he's not waiting for the ball to get there. He get on it right there. I see that it's post behind me, or it's a post this way when I'm in a hook. I know it's probably going to be a dig, to be a levels concept, snapping on that dig, getting my hands on the ball, or hitting the receiver, making a tackle, whatever you need him to do. Basically, he's really, really aggressive and with a quick trigger on route concepts and in the run game, things like that. The next thing I noticed, he has really, really good eyes and a really high IQ. I say this because, like I said before, when you trigger on those route concepts really fast and aggressively, that means you know what's coming. You know the route concepts that the offense is running. You probably watch film on them and you know their tendencies. So he has a really good IQ to be able to snap down and snap on those routes like that. But also, he has really good eyes when he's in single high because he gets into his back pedal really, really smoothly. He has a really smooth back pedal. He gets into it real smooth, and he's following the eyes of the quarterback the whole time. I rarely see him get tricked by the quarterback moving his eyes as a safety. He usually stays pretty disciplined and not fully committed to one route just because the quarterback moved his eyes and changed the position of the field. He's usually really, really disciplined with his eyes and tracking the quarterback and tracking route concepts like that whenever he's in single high. But even when he's in zone, he's really, really good at matching, pattern matching for route concepts, things like that, picking up or handing guys off to other zones, things like that. He's really, really good with his IQ and has really, really good eyes. Those are things I noticed immediately, especially in the first game that I watched of him for him. Also, the next thing I noticed, which was kind of a surprise going back to the first point, he's a secure tackler. I mean, he likes to wrap up. I mean, whenever he's in the open field or he's in the muddy of the situation, even when he's putting a little hit on you, he's going to make sure he gets low, wraps his arms around your legs so you can't run. Everybody knows, can't go nowhere if you don't got no legs. First thing you learn when you tackling, at least back in my day. I don't know. They say they changed tackling now to make it safer, things like that. I don't know. I'm tackling the same way. But he gets low, wraps up, make sure you can't get away from him. And I didn't see him miss too many tackles on tape, at least for when he made contact and wrapped up. I didn't see him miss too many tackles. So he's pretty good sound tackler and really good technique. The next thing that I really noticed, he's not a liability in man from the slot. Most safeties are kind of a liability whenever you put them on a faster slot receiver, or whenever you put them on the tight end, because they're going to get out muscled. Especially when he was on the tight end, I see him use his hand a lot, kind of preparing. I already know you're going to try to bully me because you're a lot bigger than me, especially when he's going against Cade Stover, things like that. He's already put his hands on him immediately, ready to run with him in his hip pocket, things like that. So, and against faster receivers, I didn't really get to see him face too many super like Tank Dells in the slot, things like that. But when he did play somebody in the slot, he had pretty good quick feet and good feet movement, things like that, so he doesn't get left in the dust, or his feet isn't stuck in clay. That's what I was trying to say, but I couldn't think of what I was trying to say. His feet isn't necessarily stuck in clay. Also, he's very, very versatile in this scheme. They played him all over the field. That's kind of why I stopped earlier and was like, we'll get into it later. They played him all over the field. He played one high. He played in a cover 4 system. He played closer to the slot and the nickel cornerback role, playing in press. He played all over the field. So if you're in one of those Fangio defenses that runs 2 split high safety, where it's playing cover 4 or cover 2, things like that, or rotating your safeties down, he can easily fit into that because he's so smart and he plays all over the field. Heck, I was even looking, that's not his player comp, but I was even looking like he kind of can do a little bit of what Kyle Hamilton does. And since he's such a good tackler, you can play close to the line. You can maybe blitz him a little bit, play him in the nickel full time, get him close to the line, get his hands on the ball, things like that, because he's not a bad tackler. He doesn't have terrible play strength. He's pretty quick-footed, so he's able to run with guys. And he played all over the field. It's not like he was only playing in deep quarters or in a deep single high. In college, he played all over. So I was thinking, oh, okay, that's a little thing to peep and notice. But very, very scheme versatile. I don't think you'll have a problem finding somewhere for him to play on the defense, no matter what scheme you run. Last thing I want to really say about him is he has this clutch gene. I mean, you look at how can I explain this? So whenever it's time for a big play to be made, he usually makes it. I mean, look at the past college football playoffs, last week when they were playing Bama. Or was it last week or 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, one of those. When they were playing Bama, and in that overtime, if you notice, whenever they ran that read option with Jalen Milroe, and he took off right when how the last play was at the goal line, the way that they got there, they ran a read option with Jalen Milroe, took off for 20 yards, and the last line of defense was who? Rod Moore. In the open field, he didn't hesitate, didn't panic, simply got to Milroe's legs, wrapped up in the open field, and stopped him at the 4-yard line. And if he does not get that touchdown, does Michigan go to the national championship? I don't know, because they easily would have had to keep going into overtime and scoring, going back and forth. So he kind of saved them a chance or he kind of put their ticket in for them to go to the national championship by making that play. But also, when you look at them this year when they were playing Ohio State, game winner interception goes to who? Rod Moore. You see him in a single high, or maybe he wasn't in a single high. He was playing kind of the hook, but he's guarding the right hash or left hash, one of those, right hash. Kind of watching that route concepts, look at the quarterback's eyes. He moves him towards the dig where Marvin Harrison is coming. The ball is thrown a little inaccurate, but the fact that he was able to track the quarterback's eyes and track the ball like that, come over and get the interception to seal the game. So he has a clutch gene, and I'm thinking of like Jordan Poyer in that Bills game whenever he got the interception against the Patriots, things like that, or the Chiefs, things like that. He has that clutch gene. Whenever you need him to show up, he's going to show up. You can count on him. He's not going to be that guy where it's like, damn, he just gave the game away, basically. But that's the last thing I really have on Rod Moore. It was kind of long-winded, but that's the last thing I have on Rod Moore. It's a couple more positives, but these are the things that kind of jumped out. I will say he's not necessarily especially because he had a down year this year, he's not necessarily elite at anything, at least when it comes to watching his tape, like, oh, he's an elite ball hawk, things like that. But he's really good at everything, and that's a really, really good player, especially you want in your secondary, being a leader and a communicator, things like that. But let's get into the stuff that's not really his game. Now let's get into the stuff that's not really Rod Moore's game. It's not too much, because like I said, he's a kind of especially because of the down year, maybe he had more elite tape than what I've seen from this year. I only watched 2 games from his sophomore year and 2 or 3 games from this year. But from what I've seen, things that are not necessarily his game, he's good. He has good but not great range. And whenever I say that, whenever he's playing that single high over top, you look at kind of the elite free safeties, what should I say, not necessarily Jesse Bates, but yeah, Jesse Bates, how much ground they're able to cover. It's not necessarily sideline to sideline, but it feels like it's sideline to sideline because their IQ is so high and they're able to cover so much ground with their quickness and IQ and anticipation of things that it feels like they're a sideline to sideline safety, making plays and interceptions and things like that. He doesn't have that great range to me. He's mostly a little bit outside the college hash to the other college hash, which is wider than in the NFL, so that's some decent range, and I think you'll be able to get away with him being your free safety if you're playing single high. Not get away with, he'll be pretty good at it too. But next thing I noticed, like I said, he's really aggressive in running the lane and triggering on route concepts like that. The negative to that is he overruns tackling angles sometimes. That's why I say he's a sound tackler, and I was kind of hesitant on how good he is in his technique, because another part of the technique is taking good angles, and because he's so kind of aggressive to get downhill and run that lane and make a tackle, he can outrun the tackling angles for a couple of plays, like on bubble screens, on it was on Run Player 2 that he did it on. But if you can kind of get him to maybe not tone it back because you like that aggressiveness, but if you can get him to kind of take better angles and limit how many bad angles he takes, which isn't a lot. Let me point this out. It's not like he's doing this all the time, but it popped up a couple times in the film that I was watching, so it was enough to note. But if he can kind of dial that back a little bit, he'll be just fine as a tackler. And still a really good tackler for a safety anyway, especially for kind of have a slight frame he has. But overruns angles sometimes. He's just a little bit too aggressive sometimes. It misses the angles. Next thing I wanted to see, when he's in man, I want to see him get his head around a little more. He does really good when he's able to kind of keep his eyes to the quarterback, or keep his kind of, if I'm facing you guys, if you guys are the sideline, he can look this way, but whenever his back is completely turned to the quarterback, I did notice that sometimes he's a little slow to get his head around, and that can cause penalties or get you banged on later on. I mean, he had a play where he got banged on. I think I have it on film, which I'll pull up. But yeah, I just want to see him get his head around a little more in man whenever his back is completely to the quarterback. And I know you're playing through the odds and things like that, but if you can get your head around, you're going to get some interception, you're going to get more pass breakups, things like that. Make plays, basically. I mean, for Panthers fans, I know you guys remember when James Bradbury would refuse to turn his head. I mean, you're in great position, you're doing everything right, but whenever the ball comes, you refuse to turn your head and make a play on the ball. That's not what he is necessarily, but that's because he's not in that many reps of where he's completely turned around from the quarterback. But that's what I noticed sometimes, that he can give me a little bit. His eyes can't get lost in traffic. There's a couple plays where they ran a read option, especially against Pitt State. It was a really bad play that made me write this immediately, where it was kind of just muddied up and the quarterback is coming out of the backfield. And I feel like with you being so deep, you should have known, hey, this quarterback is like sprinting. But it took him a minute to kind of process because his eyes was too busy in the backfield where all the traffic was. And it gave them a big gain on a read option play, basically, to Vanilla Vic. Shout out to him. But and like I said, he had a down year as a junior. He was they say he was a little bit banged up, so that's kind of why his year was down. So maybe he goes back to school, but if not, you can kind of look at this as a positive, because you might be able to get him in the third or later rounds, because he kind of had a down year and was a little bit banged up, and he comes back completely healthy in a better system, or a system that, you know, kind of plays to his strengths more. And he's so young, he might be able to improve a little bit, and you might have a star. You might have a star. So that's kind of the things that's not necessarily his game. But even though that last one really wasn't a bad thing, but that's the thing that's not really his game. I think he's just an overall good, solid player from what I've seen, and he has the upside to be way more than that, especially if he can get fully healthy and kind of get back to how he's playing that sophomore year. But yeah, that's all I got for Rod Moore, the stuff that's not his game. Let's go get into this player build after this. Finally, let's get in there, everybody's favorite part of the video. Let's get into the player build for Rod Moore, and we have built a thumping safety blanket. Basically, he's going to be a guy that's over top. He's going to be the last line of defense that you can definitely count on, because he's a sound tackler. But also, whenever you need him to play deep coverage, definitely count on him that, because he's really good in coverage. He's really good playing deep. He has good range. And he's just not necessarily elite. And it kind of reminds me of a tight end, especially for a young quarterback, where they say it's a safety blanket. Your tight end is your safety blanket. Your tight end doesn't even have to be elite to be a safety blanket. I think your defense make a mistake, you can fall back on him to be able to clean that up. Whether it's deep, whether it's allowing a concept to kind of come across his face that they didn't realize in the zone, and he jumps on a route. Whether it's being the last line of defense as a tackler in the open field, things like that. Whether it's covering the deep route one-on-one and you need to break it up, he's that safety blanket. You can count on him to do it. In the big moments and the little moments, you can count on him to do it, period. So he's that thumping safety blanket. As I said, thumping because he kind of surprised me as kind of the hits that he was putting down, whether it was deep downfield and kind of breaking up passes, not necessarily deep, but like 15, 20 yards downfield on digs, things like that, or whenever it's close to the line of scrimmage in the run game. He's a thumper, and I like that a lot from him. Shades of. The first one I have is Marcus Williams. Kind of reminds me of Marcus Williams because when you look at him when he played for the Ravens, he played a little all over, not necessarily all over the field, but he played a little bit different on a role than what he did when he first came into the league, where he was with the Saints, where he was this ball hawking, single high free safety, and that kind of just shows that scheme versatility. But he's also a really, really good coverage player, but he can come down and play the run if you need him to. And who does that remind you of? The guy that I just talked about for the last 20 minutes, I think. But the next shades of I have for him is Malik Hooker. And I feel like this should be the third one, but when you remember when Malik Hooker first came out of Ohio State, he was this really ball hawk, rangy safety that was really, really good in coverage. But after injuries, things like that, he was kind of not necessarily, kind of like a role player. And I think this should be his floor. That's why he should be last. I don't know how he came in second, but it's kind of like his floor. You're just going to get a really, really good, not necessarily really, really good, like elite, but just a good level, a little bit above replacement level safety that's really good in when it comes to communicating and things like that and getting his guys on track, being a leader in the defense. And the second one, which is actually the last one, be Xavier Woods for the Panthers. Really good in coverage, a thumper, really good communicating. That's kind of Xavier Woods' role. He plays in that two high split safety for Ejiro Evero's defense. But yeah, he's really good in coverage, really good in the run game, can play man coverage if you need him to, not 24/7, but he can split out and do that. But basically all these guys, all three of these guys, or at least two of them, have a lot of scheme versatility. All three of these guys can be decent or too good in the run game. Two of these guys are really good in the run game. One of them is a thumper, just like Rod Moore, and you kind of wouldn't expect it. But yeah, that's kind of what I have for him when it comes to the shades of his player builder. I think, like I said, if he comes out this year, which I could see happening because, hey, I did my 3 years. We got a chip out of it. There's no need to come back. Or if he wants to boost his draft stock, he'll probably go back. But if he doesn't care about that and his agent, kind of boost him up, maybe he can go as high as end of the second round. If they're like, hey, he was hurt this year, he could be a really, really high-end prospect once he's fully healthy. Or if they don't see it that way, he can go from anywhere from the third to fifth round and you'll have a really, really good starting safety. I think year one, to be honest, once he's able to get the defense down. And he can fit anywhere. I know I had a request to kind of put what teams these guys would fit best with. I think he could play anywhere. It really doesn't matter the team. He's going to be at worst, he's going to be a decent starter and a good leader on your defense. But that's all I got for Rod Moore. You feel me? If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe. Finna hit 200 subscribers. I think the goal that we going to do, I'm going to start doing subscriber goals now. Since we're growing a little fast now, the goal we're going to do is to get to 2,000 subscribers. No, that's a little bit much. 1,500 subscribers by the end of the year. By the end of the year, all 2024, we need to be at 1,500. Help me out. Like, subscribe. We're going to do a lot more of these videos. We're going to start doing positional ranking, things like that. We might do some coaching videos for coaching candidates. But if you want to see it, be here every Friday for these player evaluations. And I'll let you know when more stuff is to come. And I'll post more throughout the week. But it's been a real ball watching. Put your binoculars up. We out.